And we are back from the break. So, I think probably precursor this bit with when you decide to collect Slaves to Darkness, you have a choice, don't you, of which allegiance do you actually use?
Which, like, what do you... I mean, I think if you deciding to do Slaves to Darkness, like, for me, it would mostly be around the slaves, but wouldn't it? Like, I wouldn't say that you would go, I'm going to do a Slaves to Darkness army based primarily around all of the units out of the Siege book. I think you're maybe going to do a Siege army and then take some Slaves bits, maybe, but I don't know.
I think it's difficult because the battle line's so good from the Slaves to Darkness army that you might just go, well, I can have the cool battle line with the synergy of the War Shrine and the Sorcerer, and then I can slot in a Great and Clean one or a Lord of Change. Then I can take advantage of, the one of the overarching formation, but not a formation, but like the Grand Host Legions, Demonic Legion, whatever they're called.
Or take some resilient units in your Header Knights list with some Untamed Beasts to pre-game move and stop getting Alpha Striked. Stuff like that.
So I think
you don't care about Alpha Strike, do you? Because you're Slanesh, you just go last.
Yeah. Well, if you do roll the Locust, it's fine. But I think when you look at Slaves, you kind of got to think about, is that the right allegiance? And then within Slaves, you've also got your kind of the different flavours of Slaves to Darkness. So you've got your Despoilers, your Cabalists, so you've got that. But I think what we should probably touch on, let me get out this thing, is this book, Wrath of the Everchosen, which is upside down.
Cool.
But because this is the book that has added a layer on top of your non-Slaves to Darkness armies.
I've asked a lot of people. I mean, I know we covered it in the show that we never released because reasons. But I know that a lot of people are sort of trying to understand how that Wrath of the Everchosen book works within the Slave to Darkness book, and it is it's an add-on essentially. It doesn't replace unless it says so with the allegiances, or not the allegiances, the hosts within that Wrath of the Everchosen book, right?
Yeah, so it's it's interesting because in this book, sorry, I know I just went out of shot there. You get these different aspects. So you get the if I get to the rules.
Yeah, I can't remember what they're called. I know, is it the Knights of the Hollow Crown? That's an actual allegiance within itself, isn't it?
Knights of the Empty Throne, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And then Magnificent Wanderers isn't actually an allegiance, is it? That's just a level that you would then slot onto your Maggotkin or your slaves.
So they're like the Storm Hosts, or the Reapers of Vengeance for Khorne type things.
Yeah, like Hammers of Sigmar, Social Vindicators, Anvils,
So that's if you've got Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, or Slaanesh allegiance, you could use, you say, right, they're not going to be... Slaanesh is a bit weird because you're still invaders, but then you're also a lurid host, or you're also... And Maggot King never had them anyway, so it gives you another layer.
So I think it definitely makes Maggot King a bit more fun to play, and also a lot more competitive, especially with the points drops and all the stuff that comes with it.
I think the Maggot King, the Munificent Wanderers, is just so powerful. Worsening the rend, doing mortal wounds. It's just it's so good that it's but it's eventually free because it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, is there any prerequisite? Do you have to take a artifact of power or command ability?
Does
it have to be Nurgle?
Yeah, I think normally you do. It does force you some of that stuff.
But I guess if those artifacts, what the payment is for those artifacts, that if they're not complete dog toffee, then it's not too big a deal.
If you've got a formation, it allows you to get your Witherstave and Rustfang and things like that in if you want it.
Yeah.
But I think the point is that whereas Khorne had Reapers of Vengeance, if you took Flayed or Baleful Lords, that would overwrite that because it's kind of the same thing.
Okay.
So,
because it gives to Nurgle quite a lot because they never had that, as opposed to you won't be able to take Reapers of Vengeance within the Blades of Khorne book. So I can see why it's give that buff to the Nurgle Maggot King book. I mean, to be honest, if you're taking Nurgle even in Like, if you're taking like Nurgle Magickin, like, why are you not taking Magnificent Wanderers? It just makes. I mean, look at Terra's list. It makes Terra's list like probably. I mean, we've covered it a few times, haven't we? It's like whether it's one of the best lists in Sigmar at the moment. In my opinion.
And you can check that video out if you've not seen it, where we talk through all that. I think I was looking at a Pascal Blightlord list, and because they've got the demon keyword, they benefit from it as well. So makes them super resilient, and they drop down to 190 points. So I think Nurgle really got some buffs with this book.
They got some love, didn't they? I think it'd be nice to see some of those Pascal Blightlords on the table. I always found them when we play tested it. I always found them really good. I thought they were pretty cool. It was, I can remember playing against Wayne Kemp, like with them, and it being like finding them amazing. So yeah, like the fact that they've come down a little bit in points now, they feel a little bit. They're just a bit more easy to fit into that list, as long as you're not taking Thrice Rolled or anything like that, where you're paying a lot of points for your Great and Clean ones.
Yeah, and you can still put a Great and Clean one in, and you still use the Bell. They're still Nurgle. You still get Run and Charge. You still take the Lord of Affliction. You could put Be'lakor in as an ally. I mean, it's still solid. I mean, I've been looking at my Nurgle army, and I really like my Blight Kings. And I would really like to use. I used to use like a Plague Drone unit, but I'd really like to replace that with a massive unit of Pascal Blightlords, or possibly 2 units.
Mate, it'd look cool as well. I've not seen a Nurgle army on the table for a long time, so it'd be good to see that out and about. It's I think seeing those models as well, like how they look cool with the bow and stuff underneath, like they sit on the bases and stuff. And
they're really cool.
They don't have like, I mean, from remembering from the War Scroll, they don't have like out and out sort of like shock and awe damage, but I think that they're just consistently like, across the board, aren't they?
I think because they benefit from the change to the Explode Sixes rule that was made, where it's unmodified. So the Rider's basically a Blight King, and the Drone's basically a drone, and you get some extra stuff, but you can buff them with things like Blades of Putrefaction and things like that. They're not super damaging
as well.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is the resilience is there. I mean, if you're worsting the Ren, they've got a Nurgle save, they've got an armor save. They're pretty good. And I think but for me, it's more about the models, and I'm pretty sure Plague Drones are more effective, but they're not the same model, and I love the models. And I'd love to do a pure Rotbringer army, even using Morbidix Twiceborn with Bloab as my 2 characters. I think the Great and Clean one's got to go in for a competitive nature, but we're digressing a little bit. But
I really wish the Glotkin was a lot more like just better. Like I played Adam Hall at the weekend. We did some social distance Warhammer up in Derby, and I played against the Glotkin in his list, and it was just like, it's so cool, that model. But it's so rubbish. It's just like, it just died on the first turn. And like, admittedly, I did Skyborn Slayers, but I just wish it was a little bit better. You look at it and you go like, this is Archeon, but for Nurgle, almost, and he's just not very good.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he came down in points, make him a little bit more attractive. So, yeah. But I mean, like, we're on a bit of a tangent on Nurgle. But basically, with Slaves to Darkness, we're going to talk about mostly the Slaves to Darkness battle tome and the legions in there. But really, we're going to focus mostly on the battle line units, because in the handbook they're what change points. So to give you an idea of what we're talking about, the points changes that we had are and what they do is so we had the Marauders went up 10 points, didn't they, from 150 to 160?
Which is still a bargain for what they do, I think.
Yeah, I mean they're super good. I mean you get 20 of them for 160, so effectively it's 80 points for 10. They've still got a 6-inch move, they get up to a 5-up save with shields, and then when there's 10 or more they get +1 a hit. When there's 20 or more they get +1 rend. So they effectively become 3s and 4s with 1 rend with 2 attacks each with a 5-up save, movement 6.
Their chargeability is amazing as well, right? They the minimum they charge is like 8 inches or something, right?
Yeah, because one of the dice changes to a 6.
And they get +1.
And they get +1, effectively, for the banner, and one of the dice is going to be a 1. So, because it says, for the drummer, add 1 to run and charge rolls, so that gives you that one. And then it goes, when you make a charge roll, change the lowest dice roll to a 6. So if the roll is a double, change one of the dice to a 6. If you roll a double 1, you change one of the 1s to a 6, add 1, that's 7, +1 for the musician, that's 8. So it's an 8-inch minimum charge if you roll a double 1 on 2d6. So their charge is pretty reliably going to be sort of 8, 9, 10 inches regularly. Yeah. So that's massive. Just for getting across the board, really. I mean, their movement 6 as well, so that makes their threat range pretty scary.
I mean, like, banking on sort of like, what we always play around 7 being the average charge, right? Because it's the average of 2 dice. Whereas, like, when you're doing that, you are going to then start like up in, like you said, 10 and 11s as being sort of like, I should get in on the 10, I should get in on, and it just makes that threat range, I mean, like, crazy, really. Make sure everyone's got screens if people are playing against Slaves of Darkness armies.
Yeah, and I think we're using the spell to teleport the Marauders, which you can then basically pick them up and put them 9 away.
That's the Math to Darkness one, isn't it? The one where they remove them from the battle. It's like the old Sal the Faithless spell, isn't it? Where you pick a unit, pick it up, deploy it 9 inches away from an enemy, anywhere on the table.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's quite good.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of it's reliable because you're only going to fail that charge if you roll a double 1.
Yeah.
Plus the fact with the Marauders you can mark them, so giving them the mark of Khorne, Zinch, Nurgle or Slaanesh allows you to be affected by your hero's aura. Yeah,
so getting +1 damage if you're near a Nurgle hero on 6 to wound. The same. I can't remember. Khorne's an additional
+1 to hit. I
think 1s to hit. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know it was a rain that I haven't got it on the page in front of me. But yeah, I think the Nurgle and the Khorne ones are really good. I think the Slaanesh one's more charge based. So
I think it's immune to battle shock. Slaanesh.
I thought that was the standard Slaves one, but I might be wrong.
No, I think Slaanesh is immune to battle shock, I believe. And then
you run a charge roll, a modified roll for attack with a melee weapon by a friendly Slaves of Darkness Slaanesh unit wholly within 12 of this model is a 6. It scores 2 hits instead of 1. In addition, if this model is the general, you can re-roll run and charge rolls for Slaves units.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of the Demon Prince.
Undivided. And Undivided is 6 up mortal wound negation on the Undivided for the Auras of Chaos.
Okay.
And Khorne's reroll hit rolls of 1, and then add 1 to wound rolls if you're in range of the general.
Oh, it's the War Shrine. That's what I'm getting confused with. So they've obviously get benefit if you're in the Slaves of Darkness Allegiance. That unit that's 160 points for 20 models, which effectively could be buffed by a War Shrine, could be buffed by your Aura, is pretty fast, recharges really reliably at long range. It doesn't like battle shock, but at the same time, it's still pretty solid.
I mean, it's for the points you put investment, even if it doesn't like battle shock, it's going to do like so much damage to whatever it gets into, unless it's got a ridiculous armor save. So even if the thing does strike back, like they've made their point, something they've done their job. They don't like getting punched, but they're there to kill something, right? They're not there to be resilient and sit on a unit. There's other things in the book that are more resilient that you would use. They're there like the shock and awe as opposed to, the tanky unit that you want on an objective.
Yeah, but you could still make them fairly resilient because they've got a 5-up save, and I think you can improve that. The War Shrine gives you a 6-up ignore. You can then use a buff if you're if you're Zinch or you know, other allegiances, you can put stuff on to give them more protection. So if you've got 40 of them, that's still quite a tough unit to break down.
Yeah, and the War Shrine buff's actually really big when you sort of like factor it in from the edge of the base as well. So
FACEHAMMER objective markers are available for pre-order now. Click the link in the description below and order them from Element Games.
So we could talk about the War Shrine now, if you want, just to give us a bit of a as we're talking about it. So basically,
I love the War Shrine. It was in my list for my Warriors army that I've got.
So I used to use them in the old days, but get the stubborn knight unit. But yeah, it's another War Shrine. Yeah, I mean the War Shrine, it's fairly decent because again you can mark it, and then if it's got this aura which ignores wounds on a 6, and it's an 18-inch range.
Yeah, when it's not been hurt, which is the base size is quite big as well. So when you factor in, you know, the space that covers on the table is quite a lot. I found that out the hard way when I played against Rick Myhill at the team event at the start of the year. You know, he plonked it in the centre of the table. I was like, that's actually most of the table when you factor in the base. I mean, the base is 4 inches across?
It's a 120/90 chariot base, I believe. So it's it's pretty big.
I can't remember.
So it's probably about 4 by 3, something like that. So
yeah, I mean, even then, like you're thinking, a 24-inch. So it's going to be 24-inch bubble, like across this 48 inches, massive, right?
Yeah, it's 18 inches either side, so it's basically 40 inches. So from the center of the base, but yeah, it's pretty good. I think that it also has the ability on a prayer that on a free up you give a buff to a unit, so you can reroll hit rolls for Khorne, for Zinch. You can ignore spells or end the spells on a 4+. For Nurgle, add 1 to save rolls, which is massive. And Slanesh is the battle shot, which is where I was confused. And then Undivided is reroll charge rolls. Not like Marauders need any help with that, but you know. No. So it's a pretty decent buff. If you've got 40 Marauders and Nurgle and you put a +1 save, they've suddenly got a 4-up save and a 6-up ignore because they're within range of the protection.
Because they have to wholly be within 18 to actually benefit from the prayer anyway, so they will then be in the range of the protection as long as you don't run them off out of it, which is good. I think the one that screams to me is the Miracle one. I think that like stands out a mile. Just being able to get like a 3-up +1 armor save is brilliant. I do think there's a lot of legs in them. The sort of like I refer to it like the Null Stydian icon then for the Fire Slayers. You just get that on as each unit, which is really good. Which is the 4+ ignore. You know, if you're playing against magic heavy armies out there, which you know, we haven't seen the prevalence of it yet, but I think stuff like Seraphon, Lumineth Ram Lords, I think there's a lot of legs in that as well. It's a shame that it's only one unit that you can do it with, and they can only benefit from it once.
Yeah, and the ignore saves only mortal slaves to darkness units, but it's still valid, and it's only mortal slaves to dark units for the prayer, so you can't do it to like a Lord of Change or a Great and Clean one or unit of Plague Bearers. But if you've slotted Marauders or Warriors into your Zinch or Nurgle army,
Knights,
or Knights, then having a War Shrine is a great way to make that unit way more survivable or do more damage. So definitely think it's good. But we just thought we'd touch on the War Shrine because it's a valid...
Pretty fast as well, though, right? It's 8 inches move. So
it is. It's not slow. And obviously it's not terrible in combat, and it's got 12 wounds, a 4-up save. So it's pretty good. I mean, obviously as it takes damage, it gets less effective. So it's about trying to keep it kosher, I think.
It's a buff piece, right? I mean, a 4-up save and a 6-up ignore because it's going to have the protection on itself, right? So it's kind of pretty good still.
Yeah.
Definitely, you don't want to be charging stuff with it, but it's still kind of like you just keep it as a buff piece beyond your lines, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's one of those models that is quite a nice protection piece as well, because it gives you it's good, a lot of board space, so it is quite good to chunk stuff up or get in the way.
Quite cheap as well, from what I remember. I think it's a bargain.
Yeah,
definitely. I think it's a bargain. I can't remember. I'm just going to get the points up now just to make.
I was going to say.
Sure. Sorry, I've thrown you in there. Thrown you in the deep end.
I don't know. I think it's 150 off the top of my head.
170. But I still think it's good. For 170, it's still really good.
Is that from the book or from the handbook?
That's from the book, unless I don't think it's gone down in the handbook.
Oh, okay. But the Chaos Marauder Horsemen, they went up as well, I think, by 10 points, which is a bit weird.
Yeah, I've not really seen them on the table. I don't know. I think for the points, you may as well just have Marauders, right?
Yeah, I think because you only get 5, don't you? So
yeah, I mean they're a bit faster, but like I think for me it'd be if I was going to put Marauders or like try and get bodies in my list, that's the primary thing with the Slaves of Darkness book. From the times that I was writing lists of it, is that you are very light of bodies on the ground unless you take that Marauder, you go down the Marauder route, which is one of the reasons that I didn't go down that route, is because I'm not a big fan of the Marauder models and I didn't fancy converting them. But which is the aesthetic of a model like hampering its effectiveness. But yeah, I think for bodies, like for the points, you just take Marauders, right, and then Untamed Beast, and that's all the bodies that you need.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some legs in taking Warriors because they've come down in points, and then 90 points 90, for 5, and then so a unit of 15 is like 270. That's 30 wounds with a 4-up save. Obviously, they're movement 5, which isn't too bad. They still get to they've got higher bravery, so they're bravery 8 with the banner. But obviously, because they've got more wounds, they're less susceptible to blowing up for battle shock, because you need to do 2 wounds to lose a model rather than 1 wound to lose 1 model.
Super tanky as well, aren't they? Like even without like the War Shrine buffs, the fact that they've got like a rerollable armor save, isn't it? If they've got more than so many in the unit?
10.
Yeah,
10 models. 10 yeah.
So you get yourself sort of like, I mean, 20 of those seem like a bargain at 90 points.
Well, 90 points for 5, so
it's 5.
It's 360 points for 20.
360 points backed up with a War Shrine's pretty tanky, right? For them, you mark them Nurgle, they're going to get on a 3-up, 3-up rerollable armor save.
I think
6-up ignore.
Yeah, and they've got a 5-up mortal wound save from their shields. Yeah. If you take shields, which I think you always do. I think I would run them in 15s. I think that's enough. That's enough wounds and enough damage that has to go through before you lose your rerolls. But I think they're a solid unit. Obviously, 3s and 3s, 2 attacks each. They got no rend, but still solid.
And mate, to be honest, like you look at that War Scroll versus a Liberator War Scroll, and they've not got the special weapons that a Liberator has, with access to the Grand Hammers and the Grand Swords. But the rerollable armor save for unit of 10, as opposed to rerolling 1s on your shields.
Yeah, and also you've got the marks, and you've got all the buffs you get from your heroes and your War Shrine and everything else that buffs based on your marks of chaos. So
they're like better Liberators, to be honest.
Yeah, I think if I was running a Slaves army, I'd probably want a 40 Marauders and a 15 Chaos Warrior unit as 2 of my battle line.
Yeah.
Just because they offered slightly different things. The Marauders are more of a glass cannon and the Chaos Warriors are more tanky, so I think they're kind of a better unit to be your anvil. And then the Marauders can obviously act as a little bit of an anvil, but also as a hammer, and they've got the speed to get people off objectives. So
plus with the deploy spell, the teleport spell, you can get them where you need them to be if you really want Alpha Strike. I mean, I know you're relying on a 7 to cast spell going off for it to work, but I do think that if you've got that opportunity for the Alpha Strike and someone's deployed badly, then you've got that massive unit that can go in and do it as well.
I think you always put it in the army, because your opponent's got to think, what if you roll the 7? if you don't
Yeah.
if you don't have the spell, what's it called? The
Whispers of Chaos, I think, is the teleport spell.
So if you don't have the spell that allows you to move your...
Mask of Darkness. Whispers of Chaos is
I was going to say, I didn't think it was that, but...
Yeah, Whispers of Chaos is the... if you take a mortal wound, then the unit can't move.
Right.
If you kill a model, that one. So, yeah, I'll get there eventually.
That's fine. So if you say it was Mask of Darkness, you said it was called?
Mask of Darkness, yeah. Whispers is the other one, yeah.
So if you cast, if you have a wizard with that spell, then your opponent has got to deploy or think, what if you get it? Can you go behind me? Can you go at the side? Can you get a charge on a key piece? If you don't have it, then they don't need to worry about it. So you might as well have that as an option, and your opponent then has to worry about it. And if you don't roll it, you don't put your whole battle plan around it, because at the end of the day, if you don't roll it, it doesn't matter, because you just, it's a Brucey bonus,
And most people are also going to deploy weird, aren't they? Like you said, they're going to be like, right, I have to deploy in a way to protect myself, because if this spell goes off, it could be game over turn 1. So I need to basically bunker up, put screens out, or refused flank, or do something like that, so that it then to protect from it, just in case it does go off. That was one of the things I always used to love doing with Stormcast, when I deployed most of the units off the table, and it'd be like, right, your turn to deploy, and they'd be like, well, they'd always deploy a bit weird, and then you give the turn away, and if they couldn't bounce off the table, it's letting your opponent almost convince themselves into doing something stupid. They're like, oh wow, I'll bunker up, and then you go, cool, I'm not going to teleport and just move on to the objectives. Or they don't bunker up, and then you get the spell off, and then you do it. So it's all about making them act the way you want. Well, not act, that's all, like making them make choices, and eventually they'll make the wrong ones, right?
Yeah, it's just give your opponent challenges to think about, and I think that even a unit of warriors, if they don't have the particular ability to charge, you might not get the charge, but then if you drop an anvil line in front of their army, it's still disruptive enough. Put 15 in a line in front of their army, 9 away, and have all your counter units set up behind it, ready to go in. They're going to be like, well, I've got to go and fight those things, otherwise they're coming into me next turn. And if you get the charge, you pin their entire army.
Or even late game, right? You just, the game's being played, your opponent moves off the back objective, you then cast it on a 7 and put your unit on the back objective. Or get yourself, how many times have you seen people, and I'm one of the biggest people to do it, I'll leave 2 units of Judicators on the back objective and just, play the game thinking that they'll have to kill, if they've killed my entire army, then it doesn't matter, the Judicators are dead. But 15 warriors will kill 10 Judicators.
Should hope so.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's it's all about. It means that the threat of that spell moving those tanky warriors or those marauders is always going to be there throughout the game, and it also gives you the option to redeploy then in missions like Star Strike if you need to, with to make sure that you're scoring the points when you need to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if we talk about Chaos Knights, because they've come down to 160, haven't they, for 5?
I think they're a steal at 160 as well.
I think so, yeah. I mean, they're basically they've got 3 wounds each, so you're getting 15 wounds. So effectively, they're a bit more expensive than the Warriors if you had 10 of them, which would give you 30 wounds. But 30 wounds of a 4-up save for, what would that be, 320 points?
Yeah.
I mean, it's 30 wounds, 4-up save, 5-up, ignore movement 10. Yeah. They actually get +1 to charge. You can mark them. They get +1 damage and rend by 2 if they've got lancers and they charge. They're just decent.
Super survivable. I think I love the models as well. I think that having Chaos Knights are such an iconic thing to me in a Slave's Army as well, and the fact that they're now come down in points, it'd be nice to see a bit more of them on the table. I think there's a couple of lists there with entirely cav armies and stuff as well, which make them really, really viable that way. I don't know, even a unit of 5, just slot in if you got those points to spend. A unit of 5, they're such a threat with the movement and the survivability that you can't ignore them. I mean, I think it's hitting on 4s, is it, or wounding on 4s with the spears?
4s and 3s. Ren 2 damage 2 on the charge, but only Ren nothing damage 1 if you don't. 2 attacks each.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say 2 attacks apiece, you know, on 4s, you're going to lose some, and they're not going to... I mean, there's that one turn that they go in and you really roll well with the hits, and then they do a load of damage to people.
If you take in sword weapons, you get 3 attacks on model, freeze, 1 Ren 1 damage. So it's swings and roundabouts.
We'll get a hero near.
If you got a big unit, you probably want the Ensorcelled, but if you're taking a 5, then I think you just go the extra damage, because, you know, everyone that goes through is 2, right? And then Ren 2 on the charge is pretty decent. And
yeah,
you know, they're
kind
there
of like follows on from the Cities of Sigmar stuff, where they all got like all of the sort of like Cav got Ren 2 damage 2 on the charge as well.
Yeah, so I think they're that's the choice to make really with those. I think Ensorcelled is kind of safe, but sometimes you need the extra rend.
I think
the fact they got less attacks and they don't hit as often is that if they had 3 attacks each, I think it would be
standard.
It'd be better.
I think for me, like if I was taking the Knights and I was going to go down the Ensorcelled route, to me then you're also paying the points for a hero to babysit them, so that and mark them both Nurgle, so that you can get that additional pip of damage on 6s to wound. Like that would be, you know, what I'd be taking, either a Kakadrak or Lord on Demonic Mate, just to go with them, like, you know, have a big unit of it and double down on it and go, right, well, it's all about making those Ensorcelled weapons like do extra damage on 6s because I'm near the hero that's sort of like with them.
I think that's the cool thing about Slaves, is that the synergies between your core units, your heroes, your War Shrine, your command abilities, it all synergizes so nicely that compounding all those abilities on top of each other really makes these sort of battle line, I was going to use the word mediocre, but, you know, like basic units, actually effective elite units. And I think that that's the strength in the book, is to really pile into that mentality of how do I get the most out of these battle line units.
Yeah, how do they interplay with each other, and what do, like, you know, it's kind of like, it's almost like a puzzle, isn't it, trying to get it all to line up with making sure that you're in range and stuff like that. And I think that one of the things that I found when I was playing with Slaves, you know, I started a Slaves army, I was going to run a Slaves army, it was all about making sure that you were in range and knowing what each rule did and the interplay between the two, and then it really got the best out of those units. But also it sort of like rewarded solid play, so you needed to make sure that you understood where everything was and how it affected each other. But when you start playing it, if you're not, you know, it's very easy to be, I'm outside of 18, which means that buff doesn't work, which means that I can't get the aura to work, which means I can't do that, and then that sort of the combination that you've played or like you planned for in your list design then doesn't work. So I think it definitely rewards, you know, playing the army quite a lot instead of just, you know, it's not one of these arms, you know, like when a book comes out you go, that is a really good list, that is how I play with it, that is how I win games with it. I think Slaves isn't like that. I think, you know, there's a couple of key bits that I think are auto includes that we'll get to as well, which we touched on at the start with Be'lakor. But I think that it just rewards lots of games and solid, you know, a solid understanding and knowing what and how things work together.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's the best thing about the book. And I think, like, when we're talking about the Knights with the Lances, and you kind of think, well, if I was taking Khorne, I'd probably want Lances, because you get +1 to reroll 1s to hit, and you get +1 to wound. And then if you've got the War Shrine, you can reroll hits. So you mitigate that effect of, I've not got that. But then if you're playing Khorne, there's so many ways to buff attacks.
Yeah, so you just put in like a Secrator in there, right, and just buff his attacks up.
If you play Blades of Khorne, you go, well, I'll take a Chaos Knight unit, and I'll take, you know, so I'll take the War Shrine, it gives me rerolls to hits, and I could buff the attacks. So you can put them in a Blades army, and you've got a mobile defensive unit that actually on the charge does a ton of damage. And the thing that Blades suffer is lack of rend. Suddenly you've got a unit that's rend 2 on the charge. Plus you can, I think you can whip them, because I think they're mortal.
Yeah.
so I think they're whippable. So I'd have to double check that. So you get +3 to the charge, +1 for
the knights.
That'd be So I know they're mortal, but it's whether or not their Bloodstoker's got their
Can do it.
can whip them. Yeah, I'd have to double check it. But if you can, then that's +4. But it's just like I think what's really nice about the Slaves book is that even if you don't play Slaves, there's things in there for you. If you play another Chaos Allegiance.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that we've not seen a Chaos Knights on the table in a corner. And for that very reason, and there's a even there's a fancy 1-drop for Khorne in this book that could be an all-mounted knightlet. Well.
Which would be cool, and it's kind of harkens back to the old school days of Chaos Knights ruling the roost of the 7th edition, 6th edition. Your 5 Chaos Knights going in with their hand weapons like that, just going in and being awesome. Chosen knights. Which is, I think, I wish there was a chosen knight unit, to be honest, because I know you got chosen on foot. It'd be amazing to have chosen on horseback.
I suppose that's the Vanguard almost, right?
Well, they're kind of a bit better than they're a step up, aren't they? I think it'd be nice to have that
like
level
options.
Yeah. So you could, if a mounted army, you could have Vanguard, chosen, and normal, and then Marauder horse and dogs.
Because then you kind of got the
Chaos Warhounds.
Chaos War. Yeah, it's like, I know, I'm going to be a Chaos Lord, like swanning about with my 15 dogs as my core infantry troop. Yeah, all right. But I think the Lord on Demonic Mount and the Crackerdrak buff the Knights really well, don't they, with their command ability? I'm not sure if we're going to cover those guys, but
we will. I think we'll talk about them when we talk onto the heroes. But and the same with the Sorcerer and stuff like that. But basically, from the handbook changes, the Knights and the Warriors have gone up in stock because they come down in points. If I was running Slaves, I would love to run a unit. I'd love to run, and this is mainly because it looks good, 40 Marauders, 15 Warriors and 10 Knights. Because I think as you battle line, that makes you have a really nice looking army.
Yeah. How many points do you have left with that? Not much.
Quite a bit, I think, because it's not. It sounds like a lot, but I've still think you've got like
1760. So 1760.
What? Because you've got because you've got Be'lakor.
You've got Be'lakor. Always take a core.
So let's say, and then let's say you take the Warriors is what 270, the Marauders is what 320, and the Knights is 320. 850 points left. And you said
and we've always take a core as well.
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually quite a lot.
Well, you think about it's 320, 270. It's less.
So 170 for the War Shrine.
Yeah, so 170 for War Shrine, 270 for the Warriors, 320 for the Marauders, 320 for the Knights. It's 1080. So you've got, and then you always take a core, right?
Yeah.
So it's 1320. So
still got quite a lot of play, haven't you?
Yeah. And so I think, you could have a Chaos Sorcerer, aren't you? 110.
120. Yeah, 110.
Then you're probably going to take a Karkadrak or a dude on Demonic Mount. Was he 200 something?
Yeah.
So, but I mean...
Right in your list now, Rush, you're going to be collecting this.
Don't get me started.
It's really cheap as well now, because you can get like the start collecting box and sell those Crackerdraks online. And just
I do like the models, don't get me wrong. I have been tempted. Yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, it's a lot of wounds. I mean, like, if you take you've got your knight if you combine just your core, just those 3 core units, that's what 100 wounds.
Yeah.
Before you get into your army.
Quite resilient to mortal wounds as well, because of the knights and the shields from the Warriors. I mean, the Marauders aren't, but
if you've got a War Shrine, they've got a 6-up then. Yeah. That's everything's got a save. And the War Shrine, of course, makes the Warriors and Knights have a 6-up, ignore normal wounds. And if you wanted super defensive grind, you go Zinch, wouldn't you? And then that opens up some options for your allies. I think you could really. I think that is a solid core. Like, I mean, you don't need to run all of that, but it's a nice, well-rounded balance of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, quite fast as well, maneuverable. I think you could. That list seems like there could be quite a lot to it. When you get some extra little bits around the edges to just sort of like allow you to be a bit like some untamed beasts to stop the, for the pre-game move, some stuff like that. They're only 70 points for 9, I think.
Yeah, and they're cool. So, they look cool as well.
They
look cool as well.
Yeah, and they fit like, you know, into that whole. I mean, yeah, that's not a bad idea. I mean, I don't know how good it'd be. If you see on paper, it seems like it'd be quite a bit of a nightmare to deal with. Quite a lot of damage out.
I think it would look cool. I mean, I
get a Khorne Demon Prince in as well for his command ability. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Khorne Demon Prince is a bit of a standout, isn't he? So
yeah,
but I think like the whole army, it wouldn't be like, I don't think it would be groundbreaking, but I think you don't really need to delve into the elite stuff. I think what you do is you just chunk out your core, and then everything else in the army is there to support those units. So you just go, what else can I put in that's going to in fact make those units better? And the characters are pretty choppy, so they can come in and help out. And I
always find the Cracker Drat really good.
I love the model.
And also he's quite punchy as well. Like, you know, when you look at what he can do. I mean, I love the Chaos Lord. I wish you could get about a bit more so that you could use his go again command ability on, like, you know, the Chaos Knights get to fight again. But it's I think he'd be too slow in that list to be able to get across the table and be able to be in range, which is a bit frustrating.
It depends. It depends how defensive you play. If you play around the anvil and you hold the knights back in reserve, a bit like a classic war, you know, you have your skirmishers at the front, your solid elite core of phalanx of warriors, your marauders, which are kind of on the peripheral, knights on the other peripheral. You could kind of go, come into my anvil, and then you've got
Russell Crowe in the back talking to the knights ready to charge like the start of Gladiator.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
if you find yourself in fields with sun on your face, then fear not, because you're in Elysium and you're already dead. It's fine.
So, but that's like kind of what,
you could like paint the armour black as Les's beard. You know, it's fine.
Yeah, it's Mitch or and get people to charge you.
And like have, you know, vineyards on. Anyway, and you could do the whole. You should see the War Shrine speech. You know.
Yeah.
It rises up like a storm, you know, all that.
That's Oliver Stone. Not Oliver Stone. It's what's his name in it?
Oh, I should see the Colosseum Maximus.
Amazing.
I love it. This is an army just waiting to be done. I think the army would look super good in FaceHammer colours as well. Black, white, and blue. It'd look amazing.
Yeah, mostly black.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly black.
Black armor.
I was going to say, like, I was when you said that, I was like, white, because I think of the...
Yeah, but white's like the horns and the skulls and stuff, isn't it? And then the blue's the cloth colour, that sort of nice turquoisey teal blue, and then the black armour with the blue accent in it.
So what I'd like everyone to do, if you're listening or watching this, is find Russ on Twitter and send him a tweet that is just S2, not D. Not STD, because that's something different. We don't talk about that on air about Russ. But we go S2D. S2D, because then it slaves to darkness as opposed to...
I've never had that other issue. I don't know what you're talking about.
But yeah, like, because he's talking himself into it, you can hear it in his voice. He's getting all excited. If you watch the YouTube video, you can see like the gleam in his eye.
If you want to send me a Start Collecting Slaves box, I'll paint it. So, you know, I'm out there. If you buy it, I will build it and paint
like Field of Dreams.
Exactly. It's like Wayne's World, isn't it?
You'll play it. Yeah.
I was going to go with the Wayne's World rather than Field of Dreams.
Yeah,
that's where they got it from.
Classic. This is not the FaceHammer movie review, by the way. We just
come into an alternative channel. Anyway, we've talked enough about this. I think this bit will wrap up all the core units and the sort of the allegiance and stuff like that. I think we could talk about Despoilers and Cabalists and that, but we talk about that a lot in the other show. So I'd say check that show out, which is available through the RSS feed, and we'll try and launch that onto YouTube as well. There won't be any video of us talking because it was recorded a long time ago, but we'll put up a graphic or something so you can listen to it through the YouTube
platform. Picture of Be'lakor, because we don't cover Be'lakor that much in it, so it would just be a picture of Be'lakor to remind you to take it.
Yeah, just take it. Anyway, so thanks for watching. If you like it, then subscribe and like and do all that stuff that says you like it, because the algorithm needs to be told that other people should check us out.
And comment.
We're shallow.
Comment.
And we just want some internet love. No, hopefully you like it. Anyway, and then for people listening to this at home, we'll be back in a minute with another section talking about all the heroes in Slaves to Darkness.